I never thought a house could change my life so dramatically. But as I stand here, gazing at the beautiful two-story colonial that I now call home, I can't help but marvel at how much has happened in the past year. My name is Robin Mitchell, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I wanted, only to gain something far more precious. Myself. It all started on my 29th birthday. I remember waking up that morning, feeling a mixture of excitement and trepidation. For years, I had been working tirelessly as an investment manager, squirreling away every spare penny I could. My goal? To own my dream home before I turned 30. And now, finally, I had enough saved for a substantial down payment. As I got ready for work that morning, my husband Derek surprised me with breakfast in bed. "Happy birthday, beautiful," he said, placing a tray of pancakes and fresh fruit on my lap. "Today's the day, isn't it? You're going to make an offer on that house?" I nodded, unable to contain my smile. I can't believe it's actually happening. After all these years of saving and dreaming, Derek leaned in and kissed me softly. "You deserve it, Robin. You've worked so hard for this. I'm so proud of you." His words warmed my heart. Derek had always been supportive of my dreams, even when it meant living in a tiny apartment and forgoing vacations for years. He understood how much owning this house meant to me. As I drove to work that day, I couldn't stop thinking about the house. It was perfect in every way. A charming colonial with a wraparound porch situated on a quiet street lined with mature oak trees. I had fallen in love with it the moment I saw it, and I knew in my bones that it was meant to be mine. The workday dragged on endlessly. I found myself constantly checking my phone, waiting for a call from my real estate agent. Finally, just as I was packing up to leave, my phone rang. "Robin." It was Sarah, my agent. "I've got great news. The seller's accepted." "Your offer?" I felt my knees go weak with relief and joy. "Really? Oh my God, Sarah, thank you so much." "Congratulations, Robin. You're going to be a homeowner." As soon as I hung up, I called Derek. "Babe, we got the house!" I practically shouted into the phone. "That's incredible, Robin. We need to celebrate. How about dinner at Antonio's tonight?" I agreed, my mind already racing with plans and dreams for our new home. As I drove to the restaurant, I couldn't stop smiling. Everything was falling into place, just as I had always hoped it would. Derek was waiting for me outside Antonio's, looking handsome in a navy blue suit. He pulled me into a tight embrace as soon as I stepped out of the car. "I'm so proud of you, Robin," he murmured into my hair. "You did it." We settled into our favorite booth, ordering a bottle of champagne to celebrate. As we clinked glasses, Derek's eyes sparkled with excitement. "So, tell me everything. When do we close? When can we move in?" I launched into all the details, barely pausing to breathe. Derek listened attentively, asking questions and sharing in my enthusiasm. As we finished our meal, he reached across the table and took my hand. "Robin, I've been thinking," he said, his voice suddenly serious. "I know how much this house means to you and how hard you've worked for it. I think you should put it in your name." I blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, legally, the house should be yours. You're the one who saved for the down payment, after all. And, well, I know it's your dream. I want you to have that." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Derek, are you sure? We're married. It should be ours together." He shook his head, smiling softly. "No, Robin. This is your accomplishment. Your dream. I want you to have this." Tears pricked at my eyes as I squeezed his hand. "Thank you," I whispered. "I love you so much." As we left the restaurant that night, I felt like I was walking on air. Not only had I secured my dream home, but I had a husband who supported me unconditionally. Life couldn't get any better than this, I thought. Little did I know, everything, was about to change. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of paperwork, inspections, and packing. Before I knew it, it was moving day. As the movers carried our belongings into the house, I stood on the front porch, taking it all in. The beautiful red brick exterior, the gleaming white columns, the perfectly manicured lawn, it was all mine. Derek came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Welcome home, Mrs. Mitchell," he said, nuzzling my neck. I leaned back into his embrace, sighing contentedly. "I can't believe we're really here. It feels like a dream." "Well, you'd better believe it," he chuckled, "because we've got a lot of unpacking to do." We spent the next few days settling in, arranging furniture and hanging pictures. Every room felt like a blank canvas, just waiting for us to make it our own. I threw myself into decorating with gusto, determined to make our house a true home. 1. Evening, about a week after we'd moved in, Derek suggested we have a housewarming party. "Let's invite our families over for dinner," he said. "Show off our new place." I hesitated for a moment. While I was excited to share our new home with our loved ones, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anxiety. My relationship with my family, particularly my younger sister Emma, had always been complicated. But Derek was right. This was a moment to celebrate, and I wanted to share it with the people we cared about. "Okay," I agreed. "Let's do it." We set the date for the following Saturday and spent the next few days preparing. I went all out, planning an elaborate menu and making sure every inch of the house was spotless. I wanted everything to be perfect. The night of the party arrived, and I found myself growing increasingly nervous as our guests began to arrive. My parents were the first to show up, my mother immediately fussing over the decor while my father made a beeline for the bar. "Oh, Robin, this place is just lovely," my mother gushed, running her hand along the marble countertop in the kitchen. "You must be so proud." I beamed at her praise, feeling a surge of pride. "Thanks, Mom. We're really happy here." Next to arrive were Derek's parents, followed closely by his brother and sister-in-law. As I greeted them at the door, I couldn't help but notice the way Derek's mother's eyes darted around, taking in every detail of the house with a critical eye. "My, this is quite a place," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "It must have cost a pretty penny." I felt my smile falter slightly. "We were very fortunate," I said diplomatically, ushering them inside. The last to arrive was my sister, Emma. As always, she swept in like a whirlwind, her arms laden with gift bags. "Robin," she squealed, air-kissing my cheeks. "This house is amazing. I can't believe my big sister is living in such luxury." I accepted her embrace, trying to ignore the slight edge to her words. Emma had always been competitive, always trying to one-up me. But tonight wasn't about that. Tonight was about celebrating our new home. As we all gathered in the dining room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The table was set beautifully, candles flickering softly in the center. The aroma of roast chicken and fresh herbs filled the air. This was exactly what I had always dreamed of, a warm, welcoming home filled with family and love. Derek stood at the head of the table, raising his glass for a toast. "I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice warm and confident. "We're so happy to have you all here to celebrate this new chapter in our lives." I smiled up at him, feeling a rush of love and gratitude. But then, he said something that made my blood run cold. "When I bought this house, I knew it was going to be the perfect place for Robin and me to start our family," Derek continued, his eyes twinkling. "So here's to new beginnings, and to many happy years in our new home." I froze, my glass halfway to my lips. What was he talking about? He hadn't bought the house. I had. We had explicitly agreed that it would be in my name. Why was he saying this? I glanced around the table, seeing the proud smiles on our family's faces. They were all beaming at Derek, clearly impressed by his supposed accomplishment. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. As Derek sat down, I leaned over to whisper in his ear. "What are you doing? Why did you say you bought the house?" He gave me a quick, reassuring smile. "Just go with it, Robin. It's not a big deal." But it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. This house was my dream, my accomplishment. Why was Derek trying to take credit for it? The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I went through the motions of being the perfect hostess, smiling and laughing at all the right moments. But inside, I was reeling. Why had Derek lied? And why did he seem to think it wasn't important? As our guests began to leave, showering Derek with congratulations on his purchase, I felt a growing sense of unease. Something had shifted tonight, and I wasn't sure what it meant for us. After the last guest had gone and we'd finished cleaning up, I confronted Derek in our bedroom. "Why did you lie about buying the house?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Derek sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Come on, Robin. It's not a big deal. I was just trying to make a good impression on our families." "But it is a big deal," I insisted. "This house is my accomplishment. We agreed it would be in my name. Why are you trying to take credit for it?" He looked at me, his expression a mixture of exasperation and confusion. "I don't understand why you're so upset about this. Does it really matter who they think bought the house?" I felt a surge of frustration. "Yes, it matters. This is my dream, Derek. I worked for years to make this happen, and you just erased that with one lie." Derek's face hardened. "Look, Robin, sometimes, in a marriage, you have to make sacrifices for the greater good. I thought it would be better for our image if they believed I had provided the house. Is that really so terrible?" I stared at him, feeling as though I was seeing him for the first time. This wasn't the supportive, loving husband I thought I knew. This was someone else entirely. "Yes," I said quietly, "it is terrible, because it's a lie, and because you didn't even consider how it would make me feel." Derek threw up his hands in frustration. "Fine. If it's that important to you, I'll tell them the truth tomorrow." But even as he said it, I knew he wouldn't. And I knew that something fundamental had changed between us. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of our problems. Little did I know how right I was. The weeks following our housewarming party were strained, to say the least. Derek and I danced around each other, the unspoken tension hanging heavy in the air. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office and burying myself in spreadsheets and investment reports. It was easier than facing the growing chasm in my marriage. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was Emma, her voice tight with barely contained emotion. "Robin? I need your help," she said, her words catching in her throat. Felt a familiar mix of concern and wariness. Emma had always been prone to drama, and her calls for help often came with strings attached. "What's wrong, Em?" She launched into a tearful explanation. She'd lost her job, her boyfriend had kicked her out, and she had nowhere to go. "I hate to ask, but is there any way I could stay with you and Derek for a while, just until I get back on my feet?" Hesitated, my mind racing. The thought of having Emma in our home, especially with things so tense between Derek and me, made me uneasy. But she was my sister, and she needed help. "Let me talk to Derek," I said finally. "I'll call you back." When I broached the subject with Derek that night, I was surprised by his enthusiasm. "Of course she should stay with us," he said, smiling warmly. "We have plenty of room, and family should help family, right?" His sudden supportiveness caught me off guard, but I was grateful for it. Maybe this was a chance for us to reconnect, to remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Emma moved in the following weekend, bringing with her a whirlwind of energy and chaos. At first, it was nice having her around. She was always ready with a joke or a funny story, and her presence seemed to ease some of the tension between Derek and me. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice subtle changes. Emma seemed to be taking over more and more of the household duties, cooking elaborate meals, rearranging the furniture, even redecorating some of the rooms. At first, I appreciated the help, but then I started to feel displaced. One evening, I came home from work to find Emma and Derek laughing in the kitchen, the air filled with the aroma of a gourmet meal. "Oh, Robin!" Emma exclaimed when she saw me. "I hope you don't mind, but I thought I'd surprise you both with dinner. You work so hard, you deserve a break." I forced a smile, trying to ignore the pang of jealousy I felt at seeing them so comfortable together. "That's very thoughtful of you, Emma. Thank you." As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but notice how Derek's eyes kept darting to Emma, how he laughed a little too loudly at her jokes. There was an ease between them that made me feel like an outsider in my own home. Over the next few weeks, this feeling only intensified. I'd come home to find Emma and Derek watching TV together, or playing board games or engaged in deep conversation. They always invited me to join, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was intruding. One Saturday morning, I woke up early, unable to sleep. As I made my way downstairs for coffee, I overheard Emma and Derek talking in hushed tones in the kitchen. "Just don't know what to do," Derek was saying, his voice low and frustrated. "It's like she's a different person lately, so cold, so distant." "Oh, Derek," Emma sighed. "I'm sure she's just stressed with work. Robin's always been so driven. Sometimes I think she forgets there's more to life than success." I felt my cheeks burn with anger and shame. How dare they talk about me like this? In my own home? I stormed into the kitchen, startling them both. "If you have something to say about me," I snapped, "you can say it to my face." Emma had the grace to look embarrassed, but Derek just looked annoyed. "Robin, we were just talking. There's no need to be so defensive." "Defensive?" I laughed bitterly. "I come downstairs to find my husband and my sister gossiping about me behind my back, and I'm not supposed to be defensive?" Emma reached out, trying to placate me. "Robin, sweetie, we're just worried about you. You've been so tense lately." I jerked away from her touch. "Don't! Just don't!" I turned to Derek, my voice shaking with anger. "This is my house. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. And I won't be made to feel like an outsider in my own home." With that, I stormed out, grabbing my keys and heading for the door. I needed to get out, to clear my head. As I drove aimlessly through the neighborhood, tears blurring my vision, I couldn't help but wonder how things had gone so wrong so quickly. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The next few weeks were a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. I threw myself into work even more, often not returning home until late at night. When I was home, I felt like a ghost in my own house, drifting from room to room while Emma and Derek carried on as if I wasn't there. One particularly grueling day at work, I decided to come home early. I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, and all I wanted was to take a long, hot bath and maybe try to talk things out with Derek. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed that Derek's car was already there. That was odd. He usually worked later than I did. I entered the house quietly, not wanting to disturb anyone if they were resting. As I made my way upstairs, I heard muffled sounds coming from our bedroom. My heart began to race as I approached the door, a sick feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Part of me wanted to turn around, to pretend I hadn't heard anything. But I knew I couldn't. I had to know. I pushed the door open, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. There, in our bed, the bed we'd shared for years, were Derek and Emma, tangled in each other's arms. They sprang apart as soon as they saw me, but it was too late. The image was seared into my brain, a permanent scar on my heart. "Robin!" Derek exclaimed, his face a mask of guilt and shock. I, we, this isn't what it looks like. I let out a bitter laugh. Really? Because it looks like my husband is sleeping with my sister in my bed, in my house. Emma was crying now, pulling the sheets up to cover herself. Robin, please, she sobbed. We never meant for this to happen. It just did. I felt numb, disconnected from my body. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. How long? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Derek and Emma exchanged a glance, and I knew it had been going on for a while, probably since she'd moved in, maybe even before. Get out, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Both of you, get out of my house. Derek stood up, reaching for me. Robin, please, let's talk about this. We can work it out. I recoiled from his touch as if it burned. Work it out? I spat. There's nothing to work out. You've been lying to me, betraying me in my own home, with my sister. Get out. Emma was sobbing uncontrollably now, mumbling apologies and pleas. I couldn't bear to look at her. This woman, who I'd grown up with, who I'd shared secrets and dreams with, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. As they hurriedly dressed and gathered their things, I stood there, frozen. It felt like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. This couldn't be happening to me. Not after everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed. Just as they were about to leave the room, Emma turned to me, her face streaked with tears. Robin, there's something else you need to know, she said, her voice barely audible. I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, gripping the doorframe for support. Pregnant. My sister was pregnant with my husband's child. Get out, I repeated, my voice hollow. I never want to see either of you again. As the front door slammed shut behind them, I sank to the floor, my body racked with sobs. Everything I'd thought I knew, everything I'd believed in, had been a lie. My marriage, my family, my home, it was all crumbling around me. I don't know how long I sat there, crying until I had no tears left. As the first rays of dawn began to creep through the windows, I slowly got to my feet. I felt drained, empty, but a strange calm had settled over me. I walked through the house, taking in every detail. The pictures on the walls, the furniture we'd picked out together, the little knickknacks that had made this place our home. But it wasn't our home anymore. It was mine, just mine. As I stood in the kitchen, my eyes fell on the deed to the house, framed and hanging on the wall. My name was there, clear as day. Robin Mitchell. This house was mine and mine alone. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let them take this from me. I wouldn't let their betrayal destroy everything I'd worked for. This house was my dream, and I was going to fight for it. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer's number. It was time to reclaim my life, starting with this house. As I waited for him to answer, I felt a spark of determination ignite within me. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. The next few months were a blur of legal meetings, therapy sessions, and long nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had taken such a drastic turn. The divorce proceedings were ugly, to say the least. Derek fought tooth and nail for a share of the house, claiming that as my husband, he was entitled to half of everything. But I had an ace up my sleeve. The deed was in my name alone, and I had documentation proving that I had made the down payment and all mortgage payments from my personal savings. My lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Vivian, was relentless in her pursuit of justice for me. He wants to play hardball, she'd say, a glint in her eye. Let's show him what that really means. And show him we did. In the end, Derek walked away with nothing but the clothes on his back and the car he'd brought into the marriage. The house and everything in it remained mine. As for Emma, I couldn't bring myself to speak to her. Our parents were devastated by the whole situation, torn between their two daughters. I told them plainly that they were welcome in my life, but if they chose to maintain a relationship with Emma, it would have to be entirely separate from me. It was a harsh stance, perhaps, but I needed to protect myself. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood in front of the mirror, really looking at myself for the first time in months. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked older, harder, but there was a strength in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "You did it, Robin," I whispered to my reflection. "You survived, but survival wasn't enough. I wanted to thrive. I threw myself into redecorating the house, erasing every trace of Derek and Emma. I painted the walls, bought new furniture, and rearranged every room. It was cathartic, turning this place that held so many painful memories into something new and entirely my own. Work became my sanctuary. I poured all my energy into my job, impressing my bosses with my dedication and innovative ideas. Within 6 months of the divorce, I was offered a promotion to senior investment manager, along with a substantial raise. As I settled into my new role and my newly redesigned home, I began to feel a sense of peace that I hadn't experienced in years. The betrayal still hurt, of course. There were nights when the memories would come flooding back, leaving me gasping for air. But those nights became fewer and farther between as time passed. One crisp autumn evening, about a year after, everything had fallen apart. I was sitting on my front porch, sipping a glass of wine and watching the sunset. The trees lining the street were ablaze with red and gold leaves, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and approaching winter. As I sat there, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Despite everything, I was still here. I had my dream house, a fulfilling career, and a strength I never knew I possessed. I had lost my husband and my sister, yes, but in the process, I had found myself. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, so eager to please, so willing to compromise myself for the sake of others. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more self-assured. Just then, my phone buzzed, with a text. It was from my colleague Michael, asking if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. Michael had been a source of support throughout the divorce, always ready with a kind word or a bad joke to lift my spirits. I smiled as I read his message, feeling a flutter of excitement that I hadn't experienced in a long time. As I typed out a response, "Coffee sounds great. How about Saturday?" I realized that I was ready to open my heart again, ready to trust, ready to let someone new into my life and my home. I looked up at my beautiful house, the home I had fought so hard for, and felt a surge of pride. This place was a testament to my resilience, my strength, and my ability to rebuild my life from the ashes of betrayal. Whatever the future held, whether it was a new relationship with Michael, further success in my career, or simply the quiet joy of living life on my own terms, I knew I could handle it. Because I had learned the most valuable lesson of all: home isn't just a place. It's a feeling of safety, of belonging, of being true to yourself. And as I sat there on my porch, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the sky in brilliant hues of pink and gold, I knew that I was finally, truly home.